Welcome to MIS Consulting's Coffee on Us series. Today's presentation is on DocStar. We're very excited about that. Joe Saperera is our presenter, and I will hand it off to him in just a moment. As a note, we have muted everyone's lines. We do invite your questions. If you'll send them to us through chat, accumulate them, and interrupt Joe if it's appropriate, or pick them up at the end. So, Joe, I'm handing it off to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kendra. And thank you for inviting us to do this with you. And thanks everyone on the call for joining us. So my name is Joe Saperera. I am the Senior Channel Manager within Epicor, and specifically within Epicor's business unit, DocStar. And what we do at DocStar really is we've created an electronic content management solution that really allows you not only to take control of your files and all of your documentation within your organization, but also allows you to automate some of your processes internally. And today we're going to be talking to you about AP automation. So a quick agenda. I have a couple of slides on some processing statistics that a group called Ardent Partners did last year. I'm going to show you what we mean by AP automation within the DocStar ECM solution, and then I'm going to show a quick demo for you and then open it up for Q&A at the end. As Kendra said, we would love this to be interactive, so if you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask them. If you don't have to wait until the end if you don't want to, but I would like to have some feedback from you guys if you do have some questions along the way. So going on to key AP invoice processing statistics. So last year, Ardent Partners conducted a study to really understand the state of accounts payable and where we're at in today's average AP department, and these are their findings. So the average organization spends just over $14 to process a single invoice. This is really an all-inclusive cost consisting of invoice receipt, processing, human intervention, approval time, as well as working and handling exceptions. They've also found that on average, an invoice cycle time takes about 12.4 days. And by taking 12.4 days to process a single invoice, AP departments not only losing considerable time, the average invoice processing scheme, but they're also failing to capitalize on early payment discounts offered by key vendors. A lot of customers, strangely enough, found that they weren't even looking at early payment discounts as part of their invoice processing, so they weren't looking that as a benefit at all. And then lastly, over 13% of all invoices within a typical AP department are flagged for exceptions. And the big thing that they've realized and they noticed during this discovery is that we spend about 70 to 80% on average time, those 12.4 days, processing those exceptions and managing those exceptions. So why do many AP departments struggle to process invoices? Well, based on their research, the answer is just too much paper. The research shows that the average enterprise still receives over 70% of their invoices in a manual format. This includes paper-based through through snail mail, PDF, email, or faxes, and all of these require them to manually enter information for processing. So although some of those may be electronic documents such as PDF, or if you want to call a fax electronic document, they're still printing all of these out and having to manually enter this into their financial application, whether it be an ERP system or they're still processing everything through an Excel spreadsheet. So all of these leads to processing challenges, and the biggest challenge of the biggest challenge for AP departments is the lack of matching information. So 44% of the respondents said that they received an invoice a lot sooner than they received their shipment. So they really didn't have that three-way match. They were able to match the invoice to the purchase order, but then they had to wait for that receiver to show up in order to match it. 40% of them responded with having high percentage of exceptions. And again, this kind of goes back to within a manual process, not being able to take control of those exceptions and working with your vendor in order to minimize those exceptions. And then again, at the very end there, 21% said late supplier payments. Again, making those late payments and not being able to take advantage of those early payment discounts in order to benefit from processing the invoices in a timely manner. So if we really take a look at how the average AP department compares to best-in-class performers, we see some pretty drastic differences. So whereas on average, a cost per invoice came out to $14.21 per invoice, best-in-class is spending about $2.50 per invoice. That's roughly a $12 difference. Invoices processed per month by an FTE goes up double, from 2,300 invoices to 4,800 invoices per month. And the biggest one of all is really the processing cycle time, taking it from a 12.4 average days down to a 3.7 days to process an invoice. So you can see that there's a lot of difference between best in class and an average AP department. And if we actually extract those numbers out to a typical month of, let's say, 1,000 invoices, we can really start to see a drastic difference in cost. And the difference between, best in class and an average AP department is close to $12,000 per month. And as you may be able to tell, $12,000 is a lot of money within an organization, and being able to save that kind of money means a lot. So by the end of their research, this is the quote that Ardent Partners put on their report, in that best-in-class AP groups have invoice processing costs that are 86% less than their competitors. So a pretty big difference there. So what exactly is it that we mean by AP automation? Well, AP automation simply means to automatically extract data from your invoices and use the data for processing. So as you see in front of you, we have an example of an invoice, a purchase order, and a delivery ticket. And if we were processing this manually, I would have to take a look at that invoice. I would enter it manually into an ERP system. Your financial application may or may not have the ability to do a review and a compare between the purchase order and the invoice. I actually, believe it or not, I've been doing this for over 18 years on the AP automation side. I still see customers literally put an invoice, a paper invoice, up against their screen, their ERP screen, and their purchase order, and do a visual manual look at the line items on the invoice versus what's showing on the screen for the purchase order. And then obviously at the end would be that third piece, which would be the delivery ticket or the shipping receipt, and being able to match quantities that were shipped. So basically taking that information and automatically matching it for you and flagging it if there's any issues. Part of that also is being able to possibly take some of those invoices away from your hands. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see I have 20 invoices. And let's say that on an average day, I have the ability to process 20 invoices per hour. And on a normal manual process, I have to physically touch each one of those invoices, whether they match or not. And what an AP automation solution will do is, by capturing that data, it can automatically go against your financial application, do a compare of that data versus what's in the purchase order, and if everything matches, or let's say we want to set a tolerance of, let's say, 3%, and anything either matches or is within that 3% tolerance, let's just automatically upload it into the financial application to post for payment. Don't even want to touch those, don't want to see them if I don't have to. So you'll see right off the bat, not only were we able to eliminate, a huge majority of manual keying in of the invoice data, we were also able to take some of those invoices away from the AP processor, not even having to touch those invoices and being able to clear up some time for them to be able to process more efficiently. So again, this would be, and this is my last slide before I get into the demonstration. So this would be an example of what our process looks like. So documents come in regardless of what format. So if they're come in through mail and they're paper, you can scan the documents into the system. If they come in electronically, maybe you're getting an email with a PDF or a TIFF image. We import those automatically from Outlook. It goes through the intelligent data capture, which is our first step here. This is the piece that actually extracts out all of that data for us. From there, we have the ability to take our workflow and route that. So our workflow engine automatically communicates with your E10 solution or whatever financial application you have, whatever ERP you have. It'll do a 2- or 3-way match. If nothing comes back as an exception, it'll automatically say, hey, it's good. Go ahead and just process it, upload it straight into and being ready for posting for payment. If there are any exceptions, it actually goes into an exception queue. And then the exception queue separates it out based on that exception. So maybe we're missing a PO, we wouldn't be able to match the PO number. Or maybe we have line items and amount mismatched. Or maybe we're still missing that shipping receipt. Whatever that exception is, we'll automatically route to it. And these really are the only steps within the workflow that require manually processing. And actually this third one, the not received, it's not really a manual process because we can put a tickler behind this workflow step and continue reaching out to Epicor and saying, hey, you know, do I have a receiver? Has the receiver showed up yet? And then once the receiver showed up, it'll automatically route it accordingly. So really there's only 2 steps in here for processing of the invoices and processing of the data before it gets to an approval step. If an approval is required, they'll require manual intervention. From there, we have another step that says, you know, maybe if an invoice is over a specific amount, it requires special approval. If not, it just bypasses that and then automatically just gets uploaded into Epicor. So again, a really basic AP workflow just to show you some of the capability of the software and some of the reasons why we've done what we've done. So before I go on into that demonstration, does anybody have any questions for me?
I opened up all lines. Anybody have any questions? I think you're good to go, Joe.
No questions so far. Perfect. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I keep hearing muted and unmuted popping up. So I just want to go into the Epicor solution here, the E10, and I want to quickly go into invoice entry and open up a group which will allow me to show you that there's no transactions associated with this group at the moment. So I'm going to open up this DocStar group. And you'll notice there's no invoices whatsoever associated with this DocStar group within E10. So with that, I'll go ahead and bring up the DocStar solution. And then also within the DocStar solution, you'll notice that within my workflow tab, I don't have any invoices waiting for me. So I can go ahead and click on refresh. My queue is showing absolutely nothing in here. So we're going to go ahead and scan some documents into the system. And again, if you go back to our visual of what the process looked like, right now the system is going through that data capture. So it's going through, it's reading the document, it's capturing all the information off of that document, and it's automatically creating that invoice for me. So you'll notice now documents are starting to show up. So I now have 5 documents that have come through the system. You'll notice they're also in different AP workflows. So I have 2 in a PO invoice, and they found 1 that was a non-PO invoice that put it in a different workflow in there. So the system has the ability to take a look at documents and decipher whether is this a PO or a non-PO invoice, and then route it accordingly to the appropriate workflow. And you'll notice some of them are still in process, right? So it's captured all the data off of the first 3. The last 2 are still processing. If I go ahead and hit refresh, there we go. We now have all of those transactions created within within the solution. So one thing that I want you to notice also is what workflow steps and the status of them. So here's one that has a line item mismatch. Here's one that needs special approval because the invoice is over limit. Here's one that's at the approval step. Here's one where it found a duplicate. So one of the things do we look at the beginning of the process is, do we have any duplicate invoices within the system? One of the things that we found in the years of doing this is a lot of our customers complain about having to pay duplicate invoices. So this actually sends it to a duplicate invoice exception queue. And then one that's PO not found. So let's take a look at one of these. We'll take a look at the line mismatch. And you'll notice as I open up this transaction, the system automatically gives me my workflow step. It's prompting me for the receipt lines or the PO correct. It's asking or showing me the content that was captured automatically by the solution. So you'll notice that we have an invoice amount. We have a vendor name of Nordstrom Supplies as well as with a vendor number. This actually came back from the Epicor solution. So we have all of that information that we captured. At the very top, you'll notice that there's a message here that says row 0201223 fails validation. So if I go into my line item detail here, I get to see that it's 0201223. This row is failing validation. So it's telling me at the image level what's failing validation, and then at the line item level here at the bottom, it's also telling me. So this line item is the information that was captured back from the ERP system. So the first line item here, and hopefully you get to see this, it should be in white, should show in white on your side. This is the data that was captured from the image of the invoice. The next one should be in yellow. This is the data we captured from the purchase order. And then the last one in blue, this is the data we got back from the receiver. So you'll notice right at the line level that we have line unit cost is at $20 and it's actually in red, and the PO shows it should be $15. So it's really telling you what the difference is between the two and where the exceptions are. So we didn't have to manually capture any information. We scanned a document into the system. The system automatically extracted data off of this document. And then from there, it did a compare with the data that we have within our financial application in order to see if there's any exceptions at all. From here, depending on what your business process is, you can call the supplier, find out why they were charging you 20 versus 15. If it was supposed to be 15, we give you the opportunity in this case to go ahead and change this to 15. Maybe put a note within the document that says, whoops, let me go ahead and do that again. And maybe in here we say unit price approved at $15, whatever it is that you want to add to in order to be able to show that. We can actually come in here also and highlight that in order to make sure that we call it out and everybody understands what it's supposed to be. Or whatever your process is, you can follow that process. And some of our customers are actually requiring the vendor to submit another purchase order, or excuse me, another invoice with the appropriate price. But the point is here, you have the ability to go ahead and automatically be notified of what the issues are, fix those issues, and move on within the process. If I go back to the workflow here, I'm going to say no, I don't want to save those changes. Let's take a look at the one that's waiting for approval. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one here, and you'll notice again, as an approver, I'm being prompted to either approve or deny. It's ABC Metals. I get to see the line item detail at the bottom here. There was no exception, so it's actually not showing anything against the ERP. So really the only thing I need to do is approve this one. I'll go ahead and approve this transaction. And it prompts me whether I want to add additional instructions to this. So I can say approved, pay after, 18th of the month, whatever I want to say there. And I'll go ahead and save that. The document has now been approved. And so if I go back into the workflow, yes, save changes, it should show this document as gone. So you'll notice now I had 5, I only had 4. Now the biggest benefit to that is now I can go back into the ERP system, and if I go back into my invoice entry screen and I do the same search for the DocStar group, I should now have that transaction for ABC. I bring that group back up, there we go. It's actually showing a transaction. If I go in a summary, you'll notice it is ABC Metals. It has all the information, the header information, as well as line information on here. And if I go into and drill down to my attachments, it actually attached the document into my ERP screen. So again, you'll notice this is ABC Metals. If we look at our descriptions and everything, it all matches. 0.064 aluminum sheet, 0.125 aluminum sheet, 200 and 250, 200 unit cost and 250. So all of that information automatically got captured and uploaded into the ERP system, which allows us now to just go in here and post payments. So with that, I know we tried to keep this to 30 minutes, and I want to be, responsible for your time. So if there's any questions, now would be the time to ask those questions.
Everyone is unmuted. Any questions for Joe?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have to train the system for each individual supplier's invoice as to where to look for invoice number, PO number, etc., or does the OCR totally take care of that?
I'd be lying to you if I told you it was 100% proof. Right? What we found is that 80% of the invoices that we put in through the OCR, it automatically captures that information. It may not capture all of the data off of the invoice. So there is a little bit of learning into it. But for instance, if we want to take a look at this invoice here, what we found is that, go ahead and maximize this so we'll get to see it bigger. What we found is that on the invoice itself, the system is actually really good at capturing the line item. It sometimes misses the supplier name. It is the biggest thing because a lot of times suppliers don't use a text name, they'll use a logo. And so we need to teach the system, okay, for this supplier, this actually is Nordstrom Supplies. It's just that instead of having text, they have a logo there, and we teach it that. But for the most part, I'd say about 80% of the invoices that we put in first time, it captures about 80 to 90%. Click it once or twice, and once you've gone through the second time, it'll capture everything off of that invoice. So it's not 100% proof. There is a little bit of learning, but the great thing about our software is you don't have to create a template for each one of your vendors. It should automatically capture that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, by the way. Any other questions?
Yeah, hey Joe, quick question. We do a lot of capital project invoice processing, and I'm wondering if the DocStar system would somehow be able to kind of group invoices by a specific capital project.
It does, absolutely. So we have this concept of related documents. And so we would be able to take all of those documents and assign that project number, that capital project number, And then you would be able to almost have a virtual folder of what that looks like. So off to the side here, we would have another column that would say related documents. And then if you're looking at an invoice for project 123, you'd be able to see a list of all the other documents that you have that are associated with project 123.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions?
Sounds like you covered it all, Joe.
Perfect. And we were even respectful of their 30-minute time.
We were. Well, if anyone does have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to Joe or Pam or me. I'm Kendra, and most of you have my email as well. We look forward to hearing from you and talking to you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.